Yeah, like I got my phone up. Like, do we need to refresh? Oh, here we go. Hey, all right. All right. I'll see you later. I can hear you on here.
All right, let's try
But
this.
no. I can hear you on here.
All right, let's try
But
this.
no.
Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, testing. All right, let's try this.
Yep. I can hear you.
Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, testing.
Oh, you know what? Hang on. I can hear you. Take my headphones off, and then I'm
Testing,
gonna.
testing. 1, 2, 3, testing.
Oh, you know what? Hang on.
Yeah, we're gonna keep repeating because
Take my headphones off.
all right, we're gonna keep repeating because I was watching the YouTube feed and seeing if that was coming through and all that. So
It is.
Anybody like watching the replay of this right now, I was just telling Jonathan that it seems like whenever I'm trying to do a live stream or something, like I get some sort of driver update or some sort of like update to something, and nothing I set up before works anymore. So it's always like on the fly, what's working, what's not working. Let's figure this out. So I'm hoping everybody can hear me okay. Um, so I wanted, I'm going to switch it back to live just to be able to hear the live feed right now. So sorry for any like crazy doubling that happens right now. I'm going to switch it back to
Hello.
just to be able to hear the
Done.
right now. So sorry for any like crazy doubling that happens right now.
Can you hear
switch
me?
it back to
Hello.
just to be able to, all right.
I just make weird face more.
Let me send out some links that we are live now.
There's at least one other person in here, and it may be you, John.
Yeah, it is me.
Great. Okay, so we're both here, and we're both on the chat. So that's good.
That's good, yeah. Oh boy. No, it's fun. It's fun. Okay. All right. Let's get that out there. Well, if I watched enough live streams, I know it's you kind of have to wait in case anybody does show up.
Yeah.
All right.
I sent out all of the things. We both get on Twitter like, hey guys. We're over here now.
So, all right. Here we go. That's on quiet. Okie dokie. All right, this is fascinating for anyone watching the replay. I do not blame you if you're like, I'm just going to skip ahead right now.
There will be something really interesting in 5, 4, 3, 2. I counted weird, so my pinky finger is the 1.
Well, you know what? Let's just.
I haven't done anything on camera in a long time.
Well, let's just start rolling. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Countless Coffee Metal live stream. Today, I am joined by my buddy and awesome artist, Jonathan LAMANTIA, or LAMANTIA, or LAMANTIA, however you want to say it. I'm sure that guy who draws the really crazy shit.
Yeah, that worked.
You know, this is our third live stream for the channel, and I'm trying to figure out like a format for it, and like what's the best way to do, because I have the podcast, you know, and how do I want to do the live streams, and I feel like I just kind of want to have them be kind of loosey goosey and tailored to my guest. There we go. So, Jonathan, we kind of talked about, you want showing your portfolio and stuff like that. And, I'm a big fan of your art, and you've done a lot of great art for bands and metal bands and stuff like that. So I'm pleased as punch to talk about that. But usually on the podcast, I ask my guests, comics, coffee, metal, what are you digging right now? And I see no reason why to drop that.
Oh, no.
I know you're not a coffee guy. I know you're a tea man.
I mean, I always got to plug Rhetoric Coffee because I still have art on their bags, and they just got shelf space on a couple of local to them shops in the Bay Area. So that's been really cool seeing their posts with my art on their bags. But yeah, it's really funny. I really can't drink coffee anymore. But I love supporting what they're doing, and James is a great guy, and I dig this stuff. I like the smell, and I miss it. But yeah, I drink tea now, and I'm woefully behind on everything comics related, and honestly, a lot of new metal too. I listened to the new CARCOSA, which is great, and I really liked what they were doing for Restless. And I mean, it basically ends up being the thing of like, I'm here to promote only the people I'm working with, which is not great. But yeah, I mean, as far as comics go, I did actually get a chance to read one that's not out yet, which is a rarity. The one that like every so often somebody would be like, hey, if any of my mutuals want to read this, and I was like, hey, let me read it. So it's the new and now this is the part where my brain falls out of my ears and I can't remember anybody's names. I'm gonna go on Twitter now to try to find out who gave me their comics. Sally Cantorino.
Okay, yeah, we know Sally. Sally's a friend of the show.
I listened to their spot on your show, and it's their new book with Cullen Bunn. That's the name, right?
Yeah, Cullen Bunn, the Sixth Gun. Tons of great stuff.
It's good. It's really it's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. Night. Jesus, I'm the worst. Let me see what the name of it is here. It's really good that I can look at my computer right now because Door to Door, Night to Night is the name, and it is out soonish in October, I think.
Awesome. Yeah,
I'm a real good interview, right? Have me on your podcast.
It's all good, sir. It's all good.
As long as they're right in front of me.
No. Sally's a great artist, and Cullen's an amazing writer, and it's an awesome team. I haven't had the privilege of getting an early copy of that. Sally,
I'm sure. I mean, she posted about it on Twitter and was like,
I definitely probably missed that. One of the benefits of doing the podcast and all that is I get a lot of free PDFs. I've had two guests now. Like
catch up on my reading.
Yeah, I've had two guests now in the past couple weeks. Like send me essentially like the equivalent of like 12 graphic novels, and I'm like, thank you.
I don't need that many.
I definitely want to read these. I'm like, I'm hoping I can get to them. But behind me here is a lot of stuff I have not read yet.
Right.
So it's kind of the, it's brought up a lot on the podcast, but when you're making stuff, it's really hard to find time to consume stuff in the medium that you're making them in.
Absolutely. And I'm getting into more mediums now, which is horrible. The one good thing about music is I can at least passively listen to it in a sense, you know, I can listen to it while I'm working or, you know, like doing something else. And, you know, it's like, if it, you know, it'll take me as long as the song is, or as long as the album is, and the, you know, like a book will take me a lot longer because I'm gonna look at the art, I'm gonna look at the writing, and look at everything, and I'm gonna like, I'm just gonna absorb it a lot differently. And so then I'm just behind on everything. Still.
Yeah, it's the eternal struggle. And now that I've been trying to do more stuff with YouTube and reaching out to more, you know, and having PR people somehow decide they want to reach out to me, I'm getting a lot of, you know, chances to listen to more music before it's released, to do, you know, a review or a reaction or something like that to it. So now it's like, oh wow, you know, cool. I like listening to new music. I like looking for new music. It's part of the show. I try to do that every episode. We recommend a new album and all that, or just an album I'm enjoying. But yeah, it quickly becomes like, oh, if I have to do like an actual review of this album, aside from just saying it's good and here's what I like about it,
right,
I'm like, I have to listen to this thing. So
this song has sounds. They are pleasant to my ears. I like them. This person's voice has tone. Yes. It is good.
The riff does the thingy I like.
Yeah.
You know, but it's
audio goes up and down.
Yeah, it different.
I like. That's my reaction video for everything now.
Yeah,
I like. It's good.
Drums go.
Give more.
Yeah. It's just you. I find myself like not unhappy about the situation at all, because it just creates like, oh, this is another level of what I have to do to consume this. I can't just consume this passively, as you said, like, I just enjoy it for what it is. I can do that. Like, I'm doing an album review for the new album from Revocation. You know, they're a pretty popular death metal thrash style band, and it's a great album. But you know, it's the type of album where it's like, I really have to sit down and listen to it to really kind of like dissect it. Other than, I really liked it when they went halftime in this song, and I really like you know, if I'm going to give it a review, I want to like bring up points about it that I thought were unique or special, or you know, or if I didn't like it, you know, which I probably wouldn't review something if I didn't, you know, mostly like it, because why bother, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, I think that there's value to that, but it is difficult, especially when they specifically reach out to get the material reviewed, and then it's like, well, you're not going to like what I have to say, but all right. And then it's, you know, everybody's not happy.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's
spend an hour talking about it, and you're just like, I don't like it.
Yeah,
sorry.
Exactly. And that's kind of like why I don't want to like review comics, because I know how hard it is to make a comic, and I know how hard it is to like make a comic, and like, and I know what the feeling is like. You put all this work and effort to it, and then someone's just like dismissive of something you're doing. And it's not that you shouldn't be open to criticism. It's just that I don't feel like I'm the guy who wants to give that criticism. I mean, you know,
that's great. I think it's perfectly fine if people want to do that. I do think it's amazing, like, how you're able, like, I cannot do that on that level. Like, I can do it on like a one-on-one basis, but the idea that like that would be my thing of just can I swear on here?
Go ahead.
I don't want to get into it too deep before I start swearing, but I am gonna swear here. No, I just like, I don't like, if my brand was just like getting on YouTube and just constantly shitting on people's work all the time,
it's a sad life.
That became, I mean, but people do that because that is a viable commodity at this stage. But at this stage, that has always been a commodity thing, to just like get out and just be like, yeah, that, it sucks. Mm-hmm. And like, okay, but you know, and it's not to say that there isn't valid criticism to be had, but like, if the only thing that you can parse out from a work is that it sucks based on limited experience, then that's not great. Like if you've got a lot of experience in whatever field you're talking about, or I mean, I don't know. That gets really elitist really fast. So I don't.
No, I understand. I
It's
understand
like
what you're
really
saying.
get into that too much, but at the same time, it's just like I don't know. That just seems kind of lame to just spend all that time. That's what, like, for a hot minute I was doing comics reviews. I'm like, I don't want to spend my day pumping word count into this when all I want to say is this comic's really cool,
Yeah.
and I want to draw more or do something else.
No, totally.
Which is also another reason why I stopped doing my web comic, because I was doing stuff that was like spending all day on a thing that would make a tweet, and that fulfilled my, like, this is all I have to say about the subject.
Yeah.
Instead of, I'm going to do 4 panels of this around this thought and illustrate it poorly because that's where I'm at as an illustrator, instead of getting better as an illustrator and just doing something that I think looks cool and has more shelf life for everyone, instead of like a hot take that takes me 5 hours to draw. Which is what a lot of webcomic material of dudes that look like me ends up tending to be, which is why another reason I stopped doing a webcomic. Because you don't need more of that. Nobody needs more.
From time to time, I have the thought like, oh, maybe I should do like a webcomic, just kind of, funny moments or something in my life or whatever like that. And then I just feel like it would take so much work. And
it will. Yeah.
There's so many people who do it and would do it better.
I mean, I think that if you've got I am older. I'm older now, which is a dumb thing to say, but I'm older now because it's true, and it is a dumb thing to say, but I am older now. But like I did my webcomic stuff like 8 years ago, and now I have more experience of accepting like where I would approach it from. Instead of like slice of life stuff, I'd probably approach it more of like from a like more acknowledging my disabled standpoint, instead of like not approaching it, which I did a bit. But it like, I think there's great stuff if you're willing to get dirty.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, I mean, it's a generalization, but a lot of people are really afraid to get personal with the work. And the really good ones, the really uncomfortable ones, which end up having more vibrance, are the ones that are like, yeah, this is going to hurt. This is going to hurt to talk. This is going to hurt me to say. This is going to hurt you to read, but this is the reality of this situation. And if you've got something that's worth talking about, it's probably going to be uncomfortable to get out. But like at the time, I was like, I just want to say a joke, which is good too. But like, I'm not that funny after 5 hours of drawing.
Well, I'm just not that funny, period. So it's.
I mean, that's the other thing is like, if you can accept the fact that like it's not going to be a funny thing, like I always, like, mine was always like punchline oriented, or like it's a weird thing that is like, look, this is a funny, and it's like I read it and it's like, that's really uncomfortable now, not in like a, oh, that's haha uncomfortable. It's like, that's, I don't know, that's weird. Why'd you do that? But it did give me some good experience of doing something on a repetitive basis of like, I did it for a year, like every day, which, almost every day. But it's like, I can go back and look at it and it's like, well, that's cool that I did that. But what it got me used to was the idea of like, just doing a job that had drawing in it, not necessarily like that was the thing I wanted to do, but it was like an experience that like I made myself do it. Well, but I also had more time to do that kind of thing.
Well, I think, it was probably ultimately a good thing though, because it gave you basically dedicated practice time.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
and I think
No,
that's yeah.
I don't, and like me saying all that isn't to say like whatever anybody is doing is a bad thing or like they shouldn't do their their shitty webcomic.
No, I
Or
know
like,
you're not saying
or
that at
that their
all. Yeah.
webcomic is shitty, but like mine was objectively not great. But it's also like it was as good as I was going to get it at the time. But like, and I can flippantly say it's like, oh, this is my shitty webcomic. But at the same time, it's like there's some genuinely like nice stuff in there that I do still like. Um, that that I wouldn't have been the kind of artist today had I not gotten through it, which is, I think, the painful thing that everybody who doesn't go to art school has to deal with. Learning how to do something in their own way for an extended period of time that kind of sucks and that they'll be sort of embarrassed by for the rest of their lives. And whereas, like, I assume if you go to art school, I don't know for sure because I didn't go, but like from what I understand, it just feels like you would be able to have a classroom setting where somebody's guiding you through the horror show of your early years and saying like, this is good, this is bad, this will help you with this and whatever. And when you're a big air quotes on self-taught, but like when you're just trying to figure it out, you don't have guidance. You have a lot of people online or a lot of books and a lot of videos, and you're just sort of like, well, I think this would be good. And you can get lost in that real quick.
Yeah.
And I did. I let I'm lucky that I didn't form as an artist in a certain way in a certain era. Like I do think that it feels like it would be a lot harder for me to get into the mode that I'm at now currently. And that's I think why I'm sort of like I just always want to talk about art in a positive way online as much as possible. I hate, and I I don't want to talk about the current things that I'm talking about online. Like that's as close as I'm going to get it to it because it gets me real bummed out. But it's always like I want to talk to people about art in a way that is exciting and like makes them excited to do it. Because anytime I'm talking, or anytime I was talking to anybody at a convention, they would always like jam me up and be like, yeah, let's do art now. And like I don't want anybody to look at my webcomic stuff and say like, well, this is where I'm at and you think it's shit. Like why do I keep doing this? Like, well, because you were where I was at that time, and so you're probably better than I was back then because you're looking at better things, or you're doing it in a different way, and everybody's different. So like, it's really hard to look at art in a way that doesn't, you can't, my brain just shut off during that thought. So
No, I
live
100%
television.
I 100% get what you're putting down, and that's kind of part of the philosophy of me trying to do what I'm doing with the podcast and all that, where I'm not trying to talk about things in a negative light. If I don't like the thing, like a majority of the thing, then and I don't want to recommend it to anybody, I'm just not gonna talk about it. Like it's
Right.
there's more than enough stuff out there, and I am incredibly lucky and privileged to have many amazing talented friends who put out awesome comics that I love reading. So it's always kind of nice to just be able to take the work I'm admiring and enjoying from people I know, and then try to present that to a larger platform for anybody else who may not have been aware of it. And
Right.
in turn, by having those people talk about their books or whatever, or having them come on the show and things like that, they're exposing me to other people and other things, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. There's so many people who I never expected to be like friendly with on a consistent basis.
Oh, I know. Isn't that weird?
And it's like, oh no, we're good. Like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was the honest, and I can say this with all honesty. Like, yours is the only podcast that I listen to about comics,
Oh.
because I don't listen to a lot of podcasts.
And it's not really it's about comics, but it's about
well, yeah, I mean, but you have
the people who make them, and
right.
you know.
And there's always like these are the people that I don't get a chance to like see anymore. So I'm like, oh, hey, this person's on here. I want to, like I haven't seen them in like 4 years. So I'm like, well, what are they up to? And it was really cool. Like Mark Bouchard. Apologize for butchering their name if they are listening, but that was really cool. And like I really loved that particular one because that was like Andrew's. Guest spot on there, like it sort of pointed the importance of like a positive nudge in a certain direction. Like they were talking about the comic shop punk that gave him a bunch of comics and turned him back on to reading comics again. And I was like, shit, that's fantastic. That's the thing that every time I was working at a shop, like that's the hope that you would give comics to somebody and spark that imagination of like, hey, I could do this, or hey, I love this enough that I'm going to recommend this to somebody else. And I think that that's like the best thing when it comes to art in general is the idea that the human connection of people who are involved on it on all levels, whether it's the shops, the podcasts, the YouTubes, or whatever, like that thing of like, hey, I like this. Maybe you will like it too. And then maybe that will change your everything enough, or that little change. Because I think not everybody, but like people can look at change as a, well, I'm here. How do I get here? The camera. Like, how do I get from one end to here? Because it's like it's so far away, and they don't see the fact that like if you move just a fraction here, you will get there, or wherever it is. Like all it needs is a tiny movement here to get there, but all you're seeing is like this. And of course, like I'm doing it poorly, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The geometry on that doesn't match up, but it like you see somebody, and like I got into this late in the game, as far as I think a lot of younger artists go. Like I'm 40 now, and I'm not a young hot shot creator. And it's sort of funny because like at the time I was entering into this, I didn't really think of that in those terms. I was just really excited about the stuff, and like it's really easy to get, I think for anybody of any age to feel like, oh, I can't get into this. I can't be the kind of artist that I want to be because I haven't been doing this whole time. And honestly, it's like, if you look at the people who you want to work like, you will never be exactly like them. That's fine. Nobody can be exactly like these people, but like you can at least look at this career and say like, well, I would like to do something in that ballpark or that realm, and start on that path. And how do I get on that path? And I mean, a lot of it is just like, well, you can't do the exact same things because those things don't exist anymore. Like you cannot start Image Comics again because that path doesn't exist. You can do something else, which will be just as cool for you in your current, structure, as long as it's not, creating characters that already exist. But I mean, like, I guess it's also just trying to figure out like what is available to you and what can you be mad about that you can't do that doesn't exist anymore. Which I think there's a good percentage of people that get really mad about the fact that things don't have, like, you literally cannot create the same thing again because those exact circumstances don't exist anymore. And they're really mad about it. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a bummer, but like, if you got over it, you could do something new and cool. And if you stopped, complaining about it, complaining that people are too progressive or whatever.
100%. Like you, I got back into art late in the game. I grew up in the 90s. I'm going to be 40 in a week and a couple days.
Woo. Happy almost birthday.
I was drawing and
I prepare you, bitch. Your beautiful head of hair.
It's my curse.
Yeah,
it's my curse.
I'll take that curse. my headphones are accentuating my very shiny scalp right now. It's really awesome.
But you got a good shape. If I shaved my head bald, it looked like a lump of mashed potatoes. So don't worry about it.
I've got the solid Midwestern egg shape going.
But like you said, it's I had drawn all through most of high school, and I just got really disillusioned with comics, and I didn't know what I want to do, and I didn't really get back into drawing until like my mid-20s, and even then I was like still trying to figure out my way. And then for most of my 30s, I was just trying to make comics, but I was just not. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, like what comics that I want to make. And then it wasn't until we had kids and all that, and I just kind of stopped caring about. No, I stopped caring about, and I kind of like had the real talk with myself. Like, listen, like, I'm not going to be able to put in the same amount of hours a 20-year-old guy grinding away at page after page after page to get big 2 work or whatever. So I just kind of want to make the comics I want to make, because I have stories I want to tell. I know people who have cool stories who I want to work with. And, a couple of years ago, I started doing short stories and more, and I've found myself more as an artist in these past couple of years than I did in the 10 before it. So it's like I just let go of whatever I thought whatever I expected a comics career to be. And will I ever make my soul living from it? I don't know. I would like to, but if I don't, it's fine. Like I'm creatively happy, and I'm doing the things I want to do, and I chase the things I want to chase, and I'm very privileged to be able to do that. I don't have to make comics my full-time job or anything like that, but it's just one of those things where it's like, once I let go of all that caring about, or just like, I'm not going to be the next Wolverine artist. I'm not going to be the next, big guy who takes over whatever. There's people who will do that, who will be those people. Yeah. But that's just not me. And once I realized like that's what 15-year-old Don wanted. But almost
that's actually a great point, is trying to reconcile the dreams of youth with the reality of adulthood. Mm-hmm. And I mean, like, I think that we're in a chunk of generation that has a little bit of stunted growth, and that's not. I mean, honestly, a good chunk of people in comics in general, and I'm sorry, people in comics, we all have stunted growth. Like, there is this thing that locks us into a certain age bracket because we're continuously marketed to as children, and it's. It's just like, here's this toy of this thing that came out in the 80s. And it's like, I was like a baby back then, not like a baby, but it's like, here's another Ninja Turtle. Here's another thing. And it's like, and that is not to diminish the awesomeness of Ninja Turtles, mind you, because they are still awesome. But it is weird because it's like the duality of being addressed as a child effectively and the need to adult all the time. But it's like, oh, I see this toy and I need it, and I'm always like that, and I'm always needing a toy. But it's like I need to pay my bills. And I mean, honestly, like every 20-year-old has that too. But it's also like I'm really sad because it's like, what are 20-year-olds now getting marketed? Like, they're getting marketed the same stuff that we're getting marketed. Like, are they as excited about Ninja Turtles? I mean, actually, yeah, a lot of people are excited about it. Ninja Turtles is a bad example. Please don't.
It's kind of rotational.
But,
like every generation.
Yeah, I
has
mean,
their
like there's a
version of
lot
the Turtles. So
yeah, and there's a lot like the new animation, the new animated thing looks great. I'm sorry I brought up Ninja Turtles. Please don't hate me, everybody who happens to see this. Yeah, no, but you know what I mean, though. It's the I mean, I think Ninja Turtles is like the worst example I could think of, because that is one that actually has like a lot of good reinvention going on and a lot of good creative input from younger audiences. And honestly, this right here is why I stopped doing a webcomic, because you don't need my opinions on things that are going on right now. Like, other than like, I want people to be able to feel like they can draw at any point in their lives. And like, that's the thing that is most bumming me out about being online constantly now, because I am always online because I can't leave my house. And it's that, like, the general malaise of feeling like there is a limit to what we can do as artists. And honestly, it's like, just because there are things that exist now that make it different or harder doesn't mean that you can't still do the thing, or still can't learn how to be better in the way that you want to be. You like trying to find the energy every day to get up and do a little bit of progress, even if it's just thinking positively and not actually doing anything, just saying like, tomorrow I will do a thing and I will do it when I have energy for it. But today I am going to rest and I will be fine with that. And I mean, it's hard. Like, sometimes thinking positively is hard enough, and like that takes all of your energy for the day.
Well, you brought up a good point about like like age and art. It's like, it's not like sports, man. Like, granted, as we age, our eyes might not work as good, our hands might not work as good. But look at someone. Well, I'm not entirely sure the pronunciation of her last name, but look at like Ramona Fredon, the legendary Wonder Woman artist. She's in her 90s, I believe, and she's still pumping out like sketches that look just as good as the stuff she did back when she was in in her heyday. And it's like, artists just get better with age. It's not too late to stop growing. It's not too late. Like I said, in the past 2 years, I've grown way more as an artist than I did in the 10 years prior, because I just let a lot of stuff go and just drew and went after the things that I was honest with myself that I wanted to do. And I think for the most part, I think a lot of younger artists are doing that now, because they have the platforms of like webcomics and webtoons and Kickstarters and crowdfunders to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to take a chance on myself and my ideas. Sometimes it pans out, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, once you get that kind of out of your brain about like, I'm too old to start, I'm too old, it's like, no, like, if you're realistic about what the possibilities are, sure. It may not be what you thought. I'm not gonna be traveling the convention scene around the states. I got 2 kids. That's not really a feasible thing. Not to mention just the sheer cost of something like that. Was that something like, when I was like 25, I'm like, man, that'd be really cool to do? Like, yeah, of course. But now it's like, it just sounds, if I'm honest with myself, it sounds terrible. I don't want to do that.
I mean, and that's what it is. Like, there's being able to figure out what your goals are. Like, if you want to be able to do a thing, like, and I sell a lot of this stuff, and like I was very privileged to be able to have a job that allowed me to travel, and my health was good enough to be able to do that. And now my health prevents me from traveling, and I don't have that job anymore. So, like, I got a certain set of circumstances that allowed me to get through the portion of my life that, you know, like put me here in front of people. And now I'm like trying to maintain visibility. And so I recognize like maintaining visibility is really fucking hard. And as an established artist. So as a upcoming artist, it is so much harder.
Yeah.
And so like, honestly, at that point, it's like, I don't know how to market or sell art on that respect, because I didn't do it. You know, like I did all of my work was personal stuff. Like I didn't try selling stuff until a couple of years later. Like I didn't get into this stuff like to try to sell any of it. Like it was just all me trying to do art for me because I wanted to, and I, you know, like I needed an outlet. But you know, like if a lot of this is just like, if you're able to do it, then great. If you're able to make money off of it, and if you're, you know, and I think that was one of the things that like early on, hey, there's somebody here.
Hey, Johnny.
Hello,
Johnny Fitz. How you doing, bud? So, thanks for stopping by.
If like for starting, I just completely derailed.
Well, no, if you can make money, great. You know, I don't make really much. You know, a ton of money. You know, I get paid work. You know, consistently. But not consistent enough to like make it, you know, my only job. But it's like, well, I'm lucky enough that people want to offer me money for my art, and you know, I feel like I'm priced at a point to where it's feasible for independent artists to independent writers to like, okay, you know, I can get some pages from Don, you know, and hopefully, you know, I have enough of a backlog, or at least I feel like I'm at the level to where I feel like, you know, they would be, you know, people are happy with what I do. I work with a lot of really talented people, and when I first started drawing and all that, I didn't really think about commissions, and but I started selling them pretty early on. When I joined the 11 O'Clock Comics forum way back in the early 2010s, and they had like a forum thread where you could just, you know, oh, here, I'm taking commissions, and it just kind of stemmed from there. So that's always been a portion of it for me. But I get what you're saying, where it's like you just kind of started doing it. It's like, oh, people are giving me money for this, or offering me money for this.
It is really hard to. One of the things that I think really is great to see is artists that are honestly just doing their own thing. Like they recognize that trying to get into existing IP is near impossible, and so like, why spend your creative energy trying to get in the door at the big two, and when you could be building your own thing that is fun for you and way more sustainable. And you know, like that's, you know, I mean, at its core, that is what Image was doing. Yeah, I mean, there was a business model there, but you know, I don't want to use anything that exists right now for the current economic atmosphere, because everything is different.
Yeah.
Everything is absolutely different, and nobody is able to predict where any of it will go. So you might as well do something that you're going to have fun with now.
Yeah.
And will be rewarded with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like of course I had my portfolio all just sitting in wait.
And I want to get to going through your portfolio. We've been, I think, yammering around about our thoughts and feelings enough. No one wants to see that. People want to see the goods. Let's see the microns, the micron graveyard that is your portfolio, sir.
You know, like one of the main thing that my takeaway is, like, I wouldn't have been able to get to this stage with any of my work without doing a lot of things that I am less than comfortable showing to people. You know, like, I am all about showing this stuff, like the good stuff, but yeah, it's there's for every page that is this, there's also a lot of stuff that I drew that's like, oh, I mean, that's fine. But it's like all of that has value because it helped create muscle memory.
Yeah.
And, my memory is not good at the moment, but like, your body will remember the flow of things. And, if you can train yourself at whatever age you're at, one, to curb your expectations about your career goals, like if you're, wherever you're at, like you are not going to be able to do the thing that you were plotted out in your, teenage years, but you could do something that is equally cool as an adult, that if you saw yourself as a kid, it was like, oh, that's pretty damn cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not doing this, but that's still pretty badass. And a lot of it is just like not relying on somebody else's ability to put you in front of something else. Which, I mean, all of this work is because I got in front of somebody else and got hired to do it. But not all of it, but like, I mean, some of this stuff, like this is a thing that I actually did on Terrell Cannon's. I started on his podcast,
Mm-hmm.
The sketching one, and these two were personal pieces that I was just challenging myself on, and like these are two of my favorite things, and I think it's just one of those like hard things as an artist to sit down and do something big for you if you are not trained to do that. Like I follow a lot of like pro artists, and they're just like cranking out amazing stuff all the time. It's like I didn't grow up, like I don't have that in my repertoire of knowledge, so it's like it is a struggle all the time. And I do talk to people on Instagram occasionally that are like, how do you have the patience for it? And I do not, is the answer. I don't have the patience for any of this. I take a lot of breaks, and I give myself time to freak out about things because it's hard in here. Because I don't have that training that you get to not listen to the horrible voices in your head. Or I mean, I don't, that's the assumption that people get that trained out of them, which I think a lot of people don't. And maybe if you went to art school, like you would just tell me like, nah, that's bullshit. And you always have that. So I don't know. I don't think I'm any better for not going to art school, but I think I would like to see the version of me that did, to see if I'm any better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's always that like, what if I had stuck with it more? What if I had taken more traditional learning steps and things like that?
Yeah.
And the thing
I supported to begin with, so due to the current conversation about student loans, I was like, nah, I couldn't afford that anyway. So I'm like, nope. But yeah, I mean that's sort of the other thing, like the conversation around that, and like I was sick most of my 20s and 30s. Like I got a good 10-year patch where I was just like not healthy to do much of anything, and my road ended up being like I was blessed by having a partner that was able to work when I couldn't, and I got a good job at a comic shop when it happened to open up, and that was the thing that launched me on this path after a long time of being sick again and all that and moving around a bunch. And like it's just one of those things, like if you can figure out where to start at some point, you can, like I said, like those micro changes in your life over time, if you're able to survive long enough, you could parlay that into something.
Yeah.
And maybe it looks cool on paper.
Well, the examples you have now, those are two of my favorite pieces I've seen you ever do, especially the one on the right. Um, that's one of my favorite pieces you've ever done, and I've often said to myself, man, just the sheer patience it takes. But we've had this conversation.
Oh yeah.
It's like you got to step away sometimes, and uh, when I started drawing comics and all that, I was coming from not having a creative job. I had a 9 to 5 job. I was working in an office, and for some reason, I thought like, well, I can apply that ethic to my art and stuff like that. And then I quickly realized that no, I just like I worked in that setting
Right.
begrudgingly.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So like a lot of my any positive professional habits I may have had were just done more so out of spite because I was earning
Yep.
a paycheck than
Yeah.
actual desire to like operate
It's
that way. So
real funny like that.
yeah. So
Um,
yeah, I've had to change my way of thinking and how I get things done, and my way of I get your approach a lot too, where it's like for me though, I wear a lot of hats. I have a lot of muses I chase. I have music, I have
yeah.
podcasts, I have video stuff, I have comics. Comics is the main thing I love the most, but sometimes when you're just locked up on something,
Yeah.
you gotta
Yep.
go do something else. And
Oh yeah.
I've
No,
kind of been that way for a minute right
that's
now.
absolutely. I mean, I recognize like my. I don't. I mean, I am pretty sure I've got some undiagnosed stuff as far as my cognitive abilities. So like that's something that I talk about on my Instagram a bit, where it's um, like for me, the textural part of drawing is important. Like being able to have something that has a tactile nature to it, because that is relaxing to me. And like, I mean, I do digital coloring and that is good, but it's, I will always feel better after I've drawn for a bit. And that's something that took me years to figure out. It was after a while, I was like, I don't feel right unless I'm creating something. And that sounds like a weird thing to say, but it's the truth. Like I don't feel good if I'm not getting the weird energy that I have out on paper, and that's just me sitting down doing a thing. And after a while, it was creating shapes, creating stuff, and then like, which meant like I recognize I'm also not cut out for comics as like sequential in the traditional sense, because that requires a lot more discipline that is really difficult for me. Like I've done like I have a couple of pages here for some comics work that I did, which I like a lot, and I think they were a lot of fun, but they're just different things than what is normally out there, and they're hard for me to pull out of me. I like this thing, which is a lot of fun to draw, but it's also like, this is not a comics page, and and this is for a map for a tabletop RPG from Sean Richer. That's going to be coming out later in the year, I think. But yeah, I mean, I think it's also just the recognition that like, if you can figure out how to wrangle your brain into a way that works for you, you can figure out a way to wrangle your art in a way that works for other people. And for me, it's it's like trying to figure out how to make one, like I had to deal with the fact that like my wrist is not as like, I can't do tight lines as much as I used to. So it's like, how do I do something that's got an easier flow and is a little bit messy, but like I can still create something, an image that works. And I mean, like, so this is the original for the Carcosa single, Nihilist. And I mean, this was a lot, a lot of hours on that. And I don't know if any of this makes sense, by the way.
No,
So
it makes perfect sense. And you mentioned that we've had this discussion before where you've talked about how standard sequential storytelling really isn't the thing you're most comfortable with,
yeah.
or
I mean, I will try it. And actually,
no, but you do operate in the realm of comics because you do covers, but you can also, with your illustrations, you're still telling a story. And
yeah,
that's, I think, one of the things that appeal to me most about yours. You're not just drawing a bunch of lines that look cool. They are a bunch of lines and they look really cool, but there's a story there. There's something
yeah,
there, that's, it's not just the one cool thing. There's a lot of stuff happening that's kind of drawing you around the page and looking at it and just kind of examining what exactly is going on. So, you're still, making sequential art, I guess, or at least
yeah. I mean,
you're still storytelling, but that's what works
yeah,
with you and your
absolutely.
style, and
I'm, and
that's what you've
actually,
developed.
I have some of the pages from the Megadeth story that I worked on, and like I pitched. And I think we talked about this on the podcast when I was on. Like I pitched them on splash pages.
Yeah.
So this is just going to be 10 pages, 10 splash pages, and it's going to be told, like basically record size
Yeah.
pages, and they went for it, and so I did these 10 pages of as detailed art as I could in the short amount of time that I had. And like a lot of it I saved it for like this spread. And I think what's really hard is like there's people that are really bogged down with the fact that like they want to do art in a way that will not work for them, like for their cognitive abilities, and like it will wreck your brain if you force yourself to do it this way. But if you allow the fact that like it's okay if you need to do it differently, like there's no shame, there's no nothing, like it's great if you do your own thing.
Mm-hmm.
But just recognize like like take marketability out of it. Do what makes you feel comfortable first, and then figure it out from there. Because like you can build on that comfort and then start adding in uncomfortable things later.
Yeah.
If you're up for it, because it's like I had to do so much drawing and just so much like stuff that is just like me, messing around before I could get comfortable with doing pages that somebody gave me notes on. I still get uncomfortable with getting notes, but at the same time, like, like I spent 10 years as a motion graphics artist, and every time I got notes on stuff, it was like, it was awful. Which I think also leads into why it's so hard for me to do anything. And I mentioned that on Facebook the other day. Like I always expect notes whenever I turn something in, and it's not because I'm not confident in the work. I am to a point, but it's also like I just expect notes. Well, I'm used to that as a designer, but like as an artist, like the idea that you are good with what I have done and that's it, it's like that's still pretty new to me.
I recently came off a project where I had immense amount of notes.
Yeah, I that up the podcast. I was like, oh, I could not.
I'm working with this writer still, because we at the end we finally kind of like got how each other works, and it took a while for me to kind of get get across from myself to them, like this is how I need to work, this is how this needs to happen, because I can't keep going back and making these changes at this stage. Like you need to like have this decided upon. So that was a big frustrating experience, and I think it was made more frustrating because I had a lot of that. Like, I turn in the page, awesome, no notes.
Yeah.
Awesome, no notes, perfect, great. So when I finally get like a little note here or there, you know, I'm I always expected notes though. I've always, because I am an artist. I have the low self-esteem of what I do.
Right, right.
Even though I am proud of it to a level, I'm like, they're probably not gonna like it though.
Yeah.
So I think I understand you're just expecting them because I'd rather expect notes than
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. I
I'd
mean,
rather expect someone saying, what, can you change this?
when you're
Yeah.
right, when you're doing work for hire stuff, you have to do that. And that's I also the pre all that preamble. It's like, also, editors, hire me for your covers, please.
Yeah.
I will accept notes, and I'll figure out how to make it work. Because that's all the other thing. Like, I'm now 100% freelance artist now, so I have to present better. And if you could put this at the beginning of the show. I mean, like, I don't, that's all like the really honest answer for everything. But, previously, but it's as a working professional, like, you absolutely need to get comfortable with taking direction on things. Like, if you do something like this, I spent a literal day on, which is arguably way too much time. But at the same time, it's like, that's just what I wanted to do. I wanted to spend, 29 hours illustrating this thing. And when it was done, like, this is the inks for the workshed animation stop motion that they're producing right now, the Iron Leech. And they could have looked at this and be like, yeah, that doesn't work for us. And I would have had to have eaten my hand and then drawn something else. But and that's the rub. Like, that's the job. That's the job part of it. And, like, at any point in the creative process, you can be told, yeah, that doesn't work. And the higher up you go, the more likely that is. Yeah. That's the other thing. It's like the more you work on more popular properties, like, that's going to happen.
Yeah, more people have their hands in that pot, so it's natural it's going to happen. And just I had a point to make. I lost it.
I mean, but that's the thing is, like, if you and like, honestly, like, I think I plugged them last time I was on, but like Muriel Wolf, the wolf. Like, I look at what they accomplished in the last couple of years. Like, I am blown away constantly, because that's somebody that dipped out of social media, did a lot of work to just get the job that they needed to get done personally, and then came back and then just marketed the hell out of themselves, and then now is like, not just like suddenly magically got stuff, but like they spent a year doing like a full court press promo of themselves, and then got in front of the right people, and then now is getting some amazing work and produce, not just because they're able to magically get it, but they're able to deliver incredible work and like getting covers for Marvel. And I also see she used to post a little bit more of the work in progress stuff, but I know she gets notes, and I know she's got to deal with that. And like, she puts in a lot of detail too, and they're incredible. And it's like, every time I see that, like, that's fantastic, because that's somebody that did the work and knows how hard it is to continue doing the work. And like, that's really like, that's amazing. Like, that to me is like, that's what it's all about with art, is figuring out how you can propel yourself into a place that you are comfortable being a working professional, if that's your goal. And sometimes that means recognizing where you need to step back and do something completely different that will shore up your ability to do that. You know, like getting a job, doing something else.
Yeah.
You know, like whatever it is. I mean, I'm in a spot where I am literally, this is the only thing I can do. So I'm really hoping it works. But you know, there's so many people out there that are struggling, but are also like doing really amazing work. So it's, you know, I don't know what my end thought is on that, but it's nice to see all, you know, good people succeeding.
Yeah. Well, I recovered my point.
Oh, good.
The point I was going to make was, as much the biggest struggle I think that people come across with when you're becoming a creative in the comics world is the fact that we have such intense passion for what we do. We love this thing so much to our core, but in the end, it's a commercial product.
Yeah.
And that's something that has to be accounted for. If it's all you, if you're an independent creator and you're doing it on your own and you're just making your stuff and people are responding to it, then that's obviously, I think, the best case scenario. If you're working for a company, you know, that's what's going to happen when the money is coming from somebody else for what you're doing, as opposed to that's when, you know,
I mean,
that's when you kind of have to like guard yourself about the fact that it's going to be.
I will say this, and this is what nobody likes to acknowledge in art is always financed by something.
Yeah.
Something in there has to afford you the ability to make this, and whether it's, you know, good old fashioned white privilege, and you just happen to have this set of circumstances that gives you the magic money, and you know, like I didn't have that, but I certainly had the doors that open to people that look like me open. And so I always acknowledge, like, yeah, I am in this position because I had the privilege to be able to be in certain spaces. Mm-hmm. And that's just how that works. So like, I am constantly trying to acknowledge that and pay that forward to people who aren't in those spaces. Because I'm also at a place where I physically, because of my disability, like I can't go out anymore. So I'm not even in those spaces anymore. But, you know, like being able to recognize that like all art is created for something, you know, whether it's, you know, for your own personal enjoyment, like I think, you know, like I don't like to say the commodification of it, you know, like, but there is commercial something involved. Like if you, like I think it kind of sucks because it makes it sound like I'm like pro that, and I'm not. But it's just sort of like, if you can get past the idea of, you know, marketing yourself as a bad thing, and, you know, in the sense of like, get your work out there. If you're proud of it, if you want to survive with it, keep showing it. Yeah. Show, and, you know, honestly, like I think I mentioned this the last time I was on, like, show all of your work whenever you want. Like, don't wait for somebody to say like, hey, it's portfolio days. And it's like, don't wait for a hashtag. Don't wait for something. It's like, I post all of my stuff whenever I want, all the time.
Post it, repost it. Who cares? Do it.
Yeah, because honestly, it does not matter. Like, it is, you know, like if you like it, keep sharing it. It will always be new to someone. And, you know, like the old fashioned sitting at a table thing, like all of this stuff, I don't think that you know, like all of the conventions that I ever did, the vast majority of people that came to my table had never seen my work ever. And they were always like, oh, hey, this is new. This is totally new to me. And, you know, like, I can guarantee you're going to have the same experience online all the time.
Yeah.
You know, like, so why not keep sharing the stuff?
Exactly.
And because, like, there is a stigma around sharing something because you did it, like, 2 months ago, or you did it a year ago. It's like, because why? Because it's not brand new? Because you think 5 people have seen it already?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
It's
definitely the thing I've fallen into, where it's like, oh, I really liked it. I should share it again. I'm like, I don't
Do
know.
it. Do it.
You know, and
Don't
then,
listen to the
but
part of you that says no.
but the stupid thing about it is when one of my friends or an artist I enjoy does that, I'm like, oh, okay. I give like zero thought to like the fact
Yeah.
that they did that. Like, oh, I saw that already. Cool. I'll like it again. I don't care. You know?
Also, you know what? Everybody's brain is fried right now, and there's
Yeah.
a chance that if they saw it, they do not remember it. I have shown the same piece 5 times with the same people, and they're like, "That's really cool. I like that." It's like, I know you've seen this before. But you know
Well,
what?
your art does melt people's
I'm
brains
fine.
though sometimes.
I'm
So
fine with that. Like, that's not me saying like, "Why don't you remember me?" But it is like the repetition is key to remembering. You have to get it in front of people over and over and over again before they'll start remembering it. And that's something that you forget if you spend a day working on a piece or however long you're going to work on it, because you know it so well, and nobody else knows it as well as you do.
Yeah.
But the idea of like you having to talk about that sucks. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, no, I think you said a lot of great things about just, you know, what it takes.
I know we're gonna wrap it up.
No, it's fine. It's just, you know, you're giving a lot of honest viewpoints of, you know, what being an artist now is, you know, and you have a unique perspective because of your disability and things that have occurred and all that. And I mentioned this when you were on on the podcast. But you know, I'm always incredibly impressed by your work and just how you've, you know, had to deal with so many of these health issues, so many of these things coming up, and yet you still keep going, you still keep pumping through, and you still keep just trying to do it. And it's incredibly, you know, awe-inspiring for me, and I think it's something that should definitely be, you know, applauded. And that's, you know, I'm always happy to see new work from you. I'm always happy to see old work from you. You know,
I'm always happy to see any work from me, honestly. I mean, and for anybody who doesn't know me, which is I'm assuming everybody, like I have Crohn's disease, which is an autoimmune disorder, and that comes with a whole host of other stuff. And you know, I take a immunosuppressant, so I can't do conventions now, in, you know, like like at least not in a way that feels safe for me. And I don't really do anything outside right now because I've got a doctor's appointment next week, but you know, like I'm still like heavy on the masking and all that. But like it's weird. Life's weird now. But like, you know, and I know that there's a lot of people in the arts who have disabilities, who have more physical disabilities than I do, that are prevented. And you know, this is something that, like, again, like it took me a long time to get to a place where I was even comfortable labeling myself disabled on Twitter, because that's something. Invisible disabilities are like that, and you know, like if you can skirt the label, honestly, there just wasn't. I never really felt the need to. Like I will always talk about it one-on-one or online, but there's something about labeling it as a disability that never felt right for me, because there's people who are disabled in a way that is more debilitating, that always felt like I was taking away from something like that. And honestly, like it's kind of hilarious, because if I sort of tally up all the shit that I dealt with, it's like, oh yeah, that was pretty debilitating. And it's still pretty debilitating, and I don't know why I'm not talking about it in that context. But it's hard, you know. It's like you don't want to get into that because it feels like an insurmountable thing. But it's like if you take the days that you can do something and you do something productive with that, the days that you're not able to do something, you just sit back and you deal with it. And then when you're up for it, then you do something with that. And, you know, like I'm fortunate to have survived long enough that I'm able to do that. But, you know, a lot of it comes from a lot of my 20s. I didn't expect to be alive in my 40s. And I don't know how long not to be pessimistic, but like, I don't know. I'm yeah. Anyway, not to end on a downer now, but like
No,
there's
I understand what you're saying, and it's I think it harkens back to the fact that you know I think you're an impressive talent art wise. You're a really awesome person, and you have natural humility for yourself because you don't want to feel like you're taking away from someone else's space.
that comes from being so fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So fucking humble.
You're the most humble motherfucker
I'm the most
ever
humble
met.
motherfucker out there. Actually, I did want to show off these pages.
No, yeah, let's show up some pages before we wrap up because again, the thing.
So so humble. Look at this. It sucks because like I think it's also. Oh, actually, you know what? I did want to plug the book that I did the cover for it. If I could find the cover.
Well, I know you mentioned you weren't sure if you could talk about a few things you were working on quite yet.
I can talk about one thing, and actually, so like I actually specifically asked the band if I could talk about it. They're a Australian band, death metal band out of Melbourne called Blight, and I'm doing a single cover for them. This is not it. I will not show the art yet, but also don't look at this. That's interior art for something else. Okay, so that was actually interior art for a book called Inside Out, and I'll get you notes tomorrow of people that I'd like to plug if you can put them in the show notes. But this is the cover for Crom Crouch. It's funny that you can work on something and not have to say the name the entire time. And then when you say the name, you say it wrong. Mm-hmm. Sound like an idiot. So I know I'm saying that wrong, and I sound like an idiot.
I've seen it written down. That's how I would have said it. So
yeah,
we can both be idiots, I guess.
But it is a really awesome book, and I'm really happy to have gotten the chance to do the cover. And I'm going to be releasing the time lapse for it tomorrow. Awesome. But that's out. They have the pre-orders going right now for the naked cover version that doesn't have the title dress or anything like that. But I actually got to do the title for it, so that was really cool. Cool. But the cover that I'm working on right now is the single that won't be out until next year. But it's really cool to have like deadlines that are like kind of crunch deadlines that makes me feel like an actual real working pro. Like I did 2 comic covers over the weekend and I finished them up and they're all done and I can't say anything about them because they're not like one of them is not solicited yet and the other ones I can't say anything. So it's like, I got NDAs. I'm a real fucking pro now.
I can't say I have NDAs, but I've definitely started to get into the realm of like, oh yeah, can you do this? But we can't show it. You can't show it. Yeah, like and it's like,
solicited
like, okay,
that's weird. Sure. Yeah, I mean, like this was a lot of fun because like this was just like they said do more or less, not exactly do whatever you want. Like they did have some notes, but it's like, yeah, what's been really great for me throughout this whole progress is like figuring out the kind of art that I like doing and then having people gravitate towards that and then hiring me to do that. And then when I do it, they like it. And honestly, like that's real weird for me, but I love it.
No, that's exactly what I've been trying to say. Like it brings that full circle back around. Yeah. Like, once I finally started doing the art I liked and just drew how I felt most comfortable drawing. Yeah. People responded to that to more than when I was trying to,
like if you're imitating
how I needed to draw
else's or drawing how you think other people want you to draw. And like sometimes like I did a did a card for the Binding of Isaac game, and I talked a little bit about this online, but it's like I did. I talk a bit about my Patreon, and I have a Patreon, by the way. I did one version, and I was like, okay, this is done, but I want to do something else. And then I spent like a week doing another one, and I spent like so much time doing all this stuff, getting it all detailed a certain way, and like I turned it in, and he, like we went through some notes, and like I could tell after doing some changes to it, like he just wasn't feeling it. And I'm like, okay, I've got this other version. Take a look. And he's like, oh yeah, that's the one. And I was kind of crushed because it's the one that I spent it's not that I didn't spend time on it. I spent a normal amount of time on it for the kind of work that it is. So it was it was cards. So it was like 3 hours or something like that. But it wasn't as much time as the 7-day one. But the reality is like for what he hired me for, is like, yeah, that's more your style. And I was a little kind of taken aback because it was like, well, they're both my style. I didn't say this because he's the client and he's, but I was personally sort of like, well, I like dabbling. I think all of these, if it's coming out of me, that's my style. But I do recognize, like, over time, and especially for what I showed him to get the job, he was expecting a certain thing. And the way that I went and presented, I think, was something else. And so what I try to do is, I've got so many different influences in my style, that if I pull back on one, it'll start looking really different. And sometimes it's like, oh, you're doing you're doing a different thing. It's like, but you can tell when I'm more comfortable and when I'm just like letting it kind of flow out of me. And the thing that was flowing out of me the easiest was the first thing, and that's the thing that he went with. And it was like, okay, that's cool. But that's the part, and what I'm getting at, like, as an artist, like, and as a certain kind of artist, like, whatever flavor of artist sensitivities that I have, like, it's hard for me, it can be hard to sort of step back and say, like, oh, you like the first thing. So it's just basically like, if you do something, don't be afraid to just show the thing that comes naturally to you, and not try to oversell yourself as something else. It's not like, I like both of those cards, but like if somebody like said the first one is more my style, they're right. Because that is instinctively the first thing that I did. The second thing is me trying too hard, but I still like it a lot.
Well, I think if we can take anything away from our conversation, if anyone could take anything away from our conversation as we wrap up, is, trust yourself. Think about what you want to do art-wise, with what you want to create, and just go full in on that. Trust your instincts, trust your art, what feels right for you artistically, because it may not be what you think.
Right. I mean, and
but in the end, it works out.
I mean, like, a lot of it is like, if you're in a client scenario, the client is right.
Yeah.
Most of the time, which is a hard thing. Like, if you've got a job, you do have to deal with that. Like, you can quit a job at any point, like, but it's the, like, will stopping doing this thing make you a better artist? Will you be happier for it? Is this a pain worth having? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's an unreasonable request. But like, for what I was working on, it's like, he could have just as easily not liked either of them. And that's always a possibility. But yeah, there's a lot of mixed messages here, is what I'm getting at.
No, I think people can
in art,
what you're trying to say. It's you're just, if you're going into the art into a space to where you're working for somebody, you're creating art for somebody else.
Yeah.
You have to expect the fact that they're going to have an opinion on it,
Yeah.
and they're whether they completely trust you or not, it's going to be, that depending on the person, but for the most part, that's just something you have to keep in mind, is that someone might not like the thing you do, even though they wanted you to do it.
Right.
So
and somebody's always going to.
I don't think that works against the other things we've been saying about trying to find yourself and
Right.
your art and stuff like that. It's just that's just one of the many routes you can take with your art.
Right.
I've done commercial style art with drawing a comic, but I was drawing a comic for someone who does realty law. And I'm drawing
Right.
like a family looking at a house and stuff, and I can't do the usual bullshit I do with like, deep shadows and hatching and all this stuff. I had to keep it clean. So, because that's what they expected, that's what, if I'd done it like I would normally do some of my other stuff, they'd be like, this looks like these people are in danger.
Right. I mean, I think at the end of the day, there's also just like, if you can get past the hurdles of the person that hired you, assuming you're working for somebody, if you can please all of them, just recognizing that you will never be able to please everyone. There will always be somebody out there that hates whatever you do. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. That's recognizing you cannot please everyone. Like, the stuff that I do is not for everybody. Like, my partner, like, puts up with it, but I know, like, that's not what the kind of stuff that they're into. Like, that's fine. Like, art has facets, and not everything is for everyone. Mm-hmm. And I think at the end of the day, like, it is just recognizing, like, you can do something that, like, just do art that makes you happy first, figure out if that's marketable, and figure out who wants to buy that, and then do that for them. Mm-hmm. And not concern yourself with everybody else, or try to make everybody else conform to the kind of thing that you want. Like, I don't want everybody else to be doing my thing, because that's, this is not for everybody. Why would I want everybody else making my stuff too? Like, and that's what I see a lot of in comics, is like, why on earth would you want more of the same thing over and over and over again?
Yeah.
Anyway, obviously now I'm warmed up, and this will be another 2-hour conversation. So I know we have to get going.
Yeah, I do have to wrap it up, but it's always a pleasure talking to you, Jonathan. And
shut myself down now.
I implore everybody to go check out the links in the description below. You have Jonathan's website, his social medias, I'll make sure his Patreon's put up there. I'll put a link to our first episode, the podcast with John being on. And John, you're always welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time. Everybody,
thank you so much for having me and listening to my ramblings. And honestly, for anybody that is still listening to this, thank you. And I apologize for my wildly all over the place stream of thought, because I know I am a lot.
You are not, sir. You are just enough, and it was very entertaining. And again, it's a lot of exploration of the thoughts and ideas we're trying to talk about, and I think people will get something from this, hopefully. And I'm looking forward to hearing people's reactions to what we have to say. Maybe they have a different opinion. Let us know.
If you do, I want to hear it. I cannot handle opposing opinions on any of my thoughts. No, I'm always, like, feel free to hit me up online if anybody wants to chat more. Also, I have original art for sale right now until the end of the month, so please buy my art.
Go get yourself some of that goodness you've been seeing on the screen for the past.
Hire me for weird comic covers, because I would like to make more of those. Or not weird comic covers. I don't know. Yep, that's me in person being very bad at selling my art.
Well, I think your art more than speaks for itself as well. So no worries there.
Thankfully. All right, Don. Thank you so much again for having me.
Thank you, sir, and everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Please be sure to check out the podcast, Comics Coffee Metal. It is available on all the podcast services. Just type in Comics Coffee Metal, or go to comicscoffeemetal.com, or look in the show links below. I have a link to the feed and subscription for your favorite pod player. That's all. Thank you very much, and have a good night.
All right.